Welcome back to Kings of Columbus. Doug Lesmerises, Bill Landis, diving in on the top 5 showdown in Columbus. No, it's a showdown. Showdown's what a normal person would write. Berm likes puns. So we have a showdown, trademark pending, for Penn State at Ohio State at noon on Saturday in Ohio Stadium in Landis. We're going to be there. We do a post-game show every week, and normally to do that, we stay in our houses and watch the games on TV, and Austin and Berm go there live. And we think this is important enough that our plan is to go to Ohio Stadium and do the post-game show live from the press box. Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Yeah, we would like to do the same thing for the game at Michigan later in the year. So we figured, why not try a trial run this time? It'll be okay. Berm and Austin do live snap judgments and live pregame keys, and it goes off without a hitch. We'll be great.
Yeah. So what we want to do on this show is break down this game between the Buckeyes and the Nittany Lions. It's incredibly important for the Big Ten East race, for the Big Ten race, for the playoff race, for national college football, for Northern football. We had a Northern banger last week with Washington and Oregon, and we think in a very different way that Ohio State versus Penn State should live up to the hype the way the Huskies and the Ducks did. And to really understand this game, we're going to break it down in 5 parts. We're going to start with Ohio State passing offense versus Penn State passing defense. Then we'll do Ohio State rushing offense. Then we'll do Penn State passing offense and then Penn State running game. Then we'll do Ryan Day, James Franklin, intangibles, anything else that might factor into this game. Then, of course, we'll wrap it up with what you watching, what you eating, what you thinking. And I'll just tell everybody that my eating is something that I have just realized has torn a hole in my childhood. And I'm coming to grips with it right now, with a thing that I eat. So, not to make a big deal about it, not to act like my eating is more important than Ohio State, Penn State, but it might be equal. All right, let's start with Penn State defense against Ohio State throwing the ball. And we're starting here, and we might even go a little longer on this one, because we are in agreement. We think this is where the game hinges. Yes or no?
Yeah, I think so. Maybe it's maybe more of an upfront conversation than it is a receivers versus secondary conversation. But I do think this is where the game is won or lost. Yeah.
So we were trying to decide, is it players versus players? Is it groups of players? And you kind of said, that's not how football works. So we're doing what they're doing holistically. So this discussion is about Kalen King and Johnny Dixon, the Penn State corners, trying to cover Marvin Harrison Jr. and Emeka Egbuka, if Emeka Egbuka can go. Really good tackling Penn State safeties, which kind of always seems to be the case. Good Penn State linebackers, what I think is a very good Penn State pass rush. All of that trying to attack the Ohio State offensive line, trying to attack Kyle McCord, trying to deal with the Ohio State receivers. And can we start with the Ohio State offensive line? Is that where we begin here? Because to me, listen, man, this is where I am on this. We were, what's the adjective for how concerned we were about the Ohio State offensive line, particularly the tackles heading into this season?
I don't know. Very exceedingly concerned.
Exceedingly concerned. So I don't know that we can be exceedingly concerned and then never have the concern manifest itself. And to me, that preseason concern was aimed at this game.
Yeah.
Has anything happened with the Ohio State offensive line that would be like, oh, no, it's fine. Concern is gone.
No, the concern is very much still there.
That's what I think too. Yeah.
And I don't know. Maybe I would say that it's not more concern, but it's the same, which was pretty high to begin with.
So do you think the Ohio State offensive line can protect Kyle McCord against this Penn State pass rush, blitz plan, some dudes with some speed on the edge? Do you think Ohio State will hold up?
I'm skeptical. I think there will be spots, right, where they are able to, and then Ohio State needs to maximize those moments. It's interesting. I wouldn't say that Penn State has played a lot of good offensive lines. I think they like the West Virginia offensive line. I think is pretty good or solid, at least in the middle. Maybe less so at tackle. Otherwise, they've not played tremendous offensive lines. Like Illinois, like has some size. I don't think they're very good. I don't think Iowa's offensive line is very good. So that factors into the equation, but they are terrifying. The Penn State defensive line, like they're so fast, and they're stronger maybe than you would expect. Like just kind of like based off measurables and play style. Like when they need to hammer you, I think they can hammer you, especially the ends. So I don't love the matchup for either of Ohio State's tackles. I don't love the matchup for Carson Hinsman when Manny Diaz, the Penn State defensive coordinator, starts running some stunts or maybe starts bringing some safeties or some linebackers late through the middle of the offensive line. There's going to be a lot to handle in this game. And I don't think, like, Penn State's been very aggressive all year. I don't think that's changing coming into this game. I don't think Manny Diaz is suddenly going to like play back and respect the passing attack and try to keep things in front of him. I think he's going to, from the jump, throw everything he has at Ohio State's offensive line to see if they can handle it.
Penn State second in the nation in sacks with 27, second nationally in turnover margin. They picked off Illinois like 5 times in that game. Like they just
Luke Altmaier lost his mind in that game, but yeah,
Illinois actually moved the ball a little bit at times, and as soon as they started moving the ball, Penn State picked off a pass. Mm-hmm. And I thought half of them were like really good Penn State plays, and half of them were like, Luke Altmaier, what are you doing? Penn State defensively on third downs, they're 4th in the nation. So allowing only a 26.5 conversion rate. We didn't do a call out to our tech subscribers. If we tech subscriber 614-662-4509, because we sort of had our format. We want to make sure we check all the boxes on this. But I have been grabbing stuff during the week. This is from Derry. Penn State has played some pretty putrid offenses when you take a quick glance at their schedule. Do you think that the defensive ranking is a product of their opponents, or is their defense actually being disruptive? So you look at West Virginia. Garrett Green was okay in that game. Actually ran a little bit, created some things with his legs. Illinois, Luke Altmaier, not a good passing offense. Cade McNamara for Iowa was still healthy in that game when Iowa got shut out by Penn State. Obviously not a good passing offense. Ben Bryant and Northwestern, not a good passing offense. And then UMass and Delaware, which isn't even worth taking into account. So I think both are true. They've played putrid offenses, and also the defense is excellent.
Yeah, I think so. I think if they had, I don't know, maybe if they even had sprinkled in like a Western Kentucky, like Ohio State has had on its schedule, then we'd know a little more. Maybe these rankings would be a little lower. But they're like number 1 or 2 in like everything. You mentioned some of them. I'll add some others. They're number 1 overall in opponent adjusted defensive efficiency. They're number 2 in available yards. They're number 2 in first down rate. They're number 3 in points per drive. They're number 3 in touchdown rate. I think all those numbers are different if they played like even in one offense with a pulse. So it's a point worth making from the texter, it makes the analysis of this a little difficult. But if you watch that defense play and watch them fly around and like see their speed, I think you come to appreciate that most of what we've seen statistically for them is real, even if the opponents have not been particularly good.
All right, so let's focus on these guys on the defensive line. So Adisa Isaac and Chop Robinson are the main guys as their edge rusher, and then Denai Dennis Sutton is like their wrinkle guy. They will have some looks where on passing downs, they will have all 3 of those guys on the field. They had a really good play, I think, in the Iowa game where they had Chop Robinson over the center, and he destroyed the center, and Adisa Isaac was over the right tackle, and he destroyed the right tackle, and they met at the quarterback. So I think Adisa Isaac and Chop Robinson are the 2 best edge rushers that Ohio State has faced so far. And I'm not sure it's close. Now, is it Traydon Jenkins? Is that the Purdue guy who has a bunch of sacks and actually has like a pretty high number of pressures and that kind of thing? He had a weird sack on the Kyle McCord intentional grounding late in the Purdue game where he just came in unblocked on a rollout and he got to him. It wasn't like Purdue was destroying the Ohio State defensive tackles all game. That Nick Scarant guy smoked Fryer for 1 sack, but it wasn't happening all game. I think Penn State is significantly better than Notre Dame when it comes to this. Again, Javonte Jean-Baptiste has some pretty good numbers. Howard Cross has pretty good numbers for Notre Dame. They have some guys up front, but I just think these guys are better. Do you agree with that? That this is the toughest test in terms of individual pass rushers Ohio State's faced?
Yeah, I was actually trying to think going back, like it might be the best test they faced since going up against Aiden Hutchinson and the David Ojabo, right, in 2021.
Now you're entering my comparison zone here.
Yeah, at least like the tandem, right? Like they played Isaiah Foskey last year at Notre Dame. He's a good individual player. Obviously, they played these Penn State guys last year. They didn't see Nolan Smith when they played Georgia in the Peach Bowl. Perhaps there's a guy or two I'm forgetting, but the game that I thought of immediately was Aiden Hutchinson and David Ojabo in 2021.
I feel like Penn State might be just like 2 years behind Michigan on this ascension, and I don't think you can compare Penn State to Michigan right now, but I actually think Penn State 2023 and Michigan 2021 might be a pretty good comparison. You're not really scared of their passing game. They run the ball pretty well, and their defense gets after you with some guys who can blow up your offensive plan with your edge rushers. So to me, Adisa Isaac is a guy, he feels like a speed rusher.
Mm-hmm.
And Chop Robinson feels like he has a little bit more in the toolbox in terms of pass rush moves. And then Denai Dennis Sutton is like a young guy who's like on his way up and probably will be a real problem a year from now. What would scare me for Ohio State, and they seem to move their guys around. It feels like they're left and right side. They're not dedicated to anything. I think they will hunt matchups a little bit. I think they just like to keep it fresh. To me, the biggest problem is Adisa Isaac over Josh Fryer, speed rusher against Fryer, and Chop Robinson over Josh Simmons, veteran guy with a couple moves against a guy who is still getting accustomed to that level. I don't like either of those matchups for Ohio State. Now, Isaac as a speed guy, like an athlete against Simmons. Simmons is more of an athlete. Okay. Robinson versus Fryer is more veteran versus veteran. If I were Penn State, I would put Isaac over Fryer and Robinson over Simmons as often as I possibly can and anticipate winning both of those matchups a decent chunk of the time.
Yeah, I think I would too. And then you can sprinkle on top of that, just like try to overwhelm either one of those sides with like Abdul Carter, one of Penn State's linebackers, who he's a good like box linebacker. I think he's at his best when they just let him like pin his ears back and go after the passer, like not dissimilar from, he's not Micah Parsons, but like the idea of how to use him, I think is similar. Also similar to like how Harold Perkins, I think, was used at LSU last year. Again, not the same talent, but I think the same skill set and the way you want to utilize it. So I think they'll pick their spots there. They'll probably test both of the tackles to see, which one might be able to handle that the best, like kind of run through two guys through there and see what springs free. That's why I think that we're, regardless of the health situation with Ohio State, I think we're going to see a ton of 12 personnel in this game. Yeah. I think you're going to want to help the tackles, and it actually makes the running back situation interesting because clearly they don't love Dallin Hayden's pass protection. And I don't know who's the best. It's probably Chip, I would assume, just based off physicality. And I don't know if he's going to be available. So there are ways to negate that, right? If you send the back out and throw him a pass, then in theory you could take one of those guys out of the rush. But we saw that. What year was that? It must have been 2020 when like they still had Luke Farrell and Jeremy Ruckert in the offense. Like Luke Farrell was like playing left tackle in that game. Like he just like stood in there and pass blocked the entire game, because this is not new for Penn State to have like a relentless pass rush and some guys that concern you. This is probably just the best version of that we've seen in a while.
There's a comparison that I have for Abdul Carter, who does, I think his stats aren't huge, but I think he jumps off the film when you watch them. 2022 Tommy Eichenberg. He feels like a sledgehammer to me. And that when they let it rip on a blitz or just triggering and tracking a ball carrier down, he's relentless. And we've talked a lot about how Eichenberg, sort of what Jim Knowles is asking of him, is a little bit different this year. But we saw how impactful Tommy Eichenberg was in people's grills all of last year. When I watched Abdul Carter, that's what it reminded me of.
I think that's actually a good comparison, like a little bit of like a heat-seeking missile that they direct in certain places. I do think he does freelance at times a little too much, and he does have 9 missed tackles this year. He does not always play under control, and I think that is actually true of of Penn State defense at large. Like, they're so fast, and they want to use that speed that sometimes I think it's actually to their detriment, because they just sort of do things too fast, and they miss some open field tackles, or they'll miss tackles in the backfield too. So that's something to keep an eye on. But yeah, Abdul Carter is probably like a little bit of an X factor in this game. It's like as we consider the individual matchups on the defensive line, like being able to insert a guy like Abdul Carter into that pass rush, I think could give Ohio State some issues.
What are you expecting from Penn State defensive coordinator Manny Diaz in terms of his blitz plan against Kyle McCord and this offensive line? Because it does feel like, just like we're accustomed, I think there's a lot of comparisons between Manny Diaz and Jim Knowles. Veteran defensive coordinators, both in their second year at big-time programs, I think finding what they're comfortable with, and they'll both dial up some exotic-looking blitzes to confuse offensive lines.
Yeah, and Manny Diaz will do the simulated pressure stuff too, where he'll bring a second level defender to replace a defensive lineman. Like, you'll see Chop Robinson actually drop out in the coverage sometimes, not dissimilar from what we've seen from JT Tuimoloau and Jack Sawyer. And like he'll blitz a lot. Like, I think in every game they've been over 50% blitz rate, and it'd probably be even higher than that in this game. And he brings it from different spots. The thing that I'm curious about, because you saw it in the West Virginia game, and you saw it in the Illinois game. Like, Manny Diaz is not afraid to blitz his corners. Yeah. But I wonder, like, do you want to play that game when you have the receivers that Ohio State has? Because I feel like it's been infrequent that the teams have been able to hit Penn State for large pass plays. I think they've only given up 12 plays of 20 yards or more run and pass all year. That's the second lowest number in the country. But the few like big pass plays I did see were, we're going to blitz a corner, and then the offense just sort of like flooded the zone where that corner came from. And whoever was there, like, couldn't cover 2 guys at once, and like big hits came of that. Like, Ryan Day has enough, 3-level passing concepts in his bag, I think, to attack vulnerable zones when Penn State does want to insert a defensive back into the pass rush. So I think there's a give and take there that Manny Diaz has to weigh. Like, is this worth it? But like I said, I think everything that he can throw at them, I think he'll try it early to see what works and what doesn't.
It actually feels like to me that in a lot of ways, these are sort of 2 ships passing in the night, that some of the best things that one team doesn't actually fit with like the worst thing that the other team does, that there's some clunkiness to trying to match this up. Yeah. But I also think that, you watch the way the defenses have played, both kind of inexperienced quarterbacks, the Penn State quarterbacks from Ohio, the Ohio State quarterbacks from, air quotes, Philadelphia. South Jersey, right? South Jersey?
Right. South Jersey.
Yeah. Didn't want to make Landis mad. The Phillies are up 2-0, and he's feeling himself. So
sure
I'll tread lightly with the Philadelphia references. But still the defining, the largest gap is Penn State doesn't have receivers like Ohio State has receivers. Yeah. So again, as we record this on Wednesday morning, we're uncertain of Emeka Egbuka. But can Marvin Harrison Jr. and I think Cade Stover is in the sidecar now, man. Like, Marv is on the chopper, but Cade is like, let's go. How good of a wingman would Cade Stover be? Like, in a fight?
Oh yeah.
Right? Can you imagine? Or just like, out at the bar, just hanging out. Cade. Wouldn't Cade have your back?
The one thing I would worry about Cade is he might like break the beer bottle too early, like just like escalate things. It's like we were just having a disagreement, and you took it to 11 immediately. So I'd be a little worried about that.
Yeah, like the guy comes up and is like, I think Roma Dunze is the best receiver in college football, and Cade's like, let's go.
Yeah,
say it again, and Marv's like, hey, it's okay, man. Rome's good. It's okay.
Yeah.
Can they beat Penn State? Like, here we are, we're going to do like 90 minutes of this. Is the answer, because was the answer last year not Marv beat Penn State? It took them 4 quarters to work it out, but at the end of the game, they were just like, Marv, can you go smoke Joey Porter Jr. and we'll win this thing? Like, is that on the table? He had 10 catches for 185. All 10 catches were for first downs.
Yeah.
Penn State, is that on the table?
I think so. I will say, like, for as much pub as Joey Porter Jr. got last year, and like he was very good. I think Kalen King is better.
And Joey Porter Jr. was the first pick in the second round in the NFL draft.
Yeah, and Kalen,
lay it down.
Yeah, Kalen King's going to be a first round pick, and Johnny Dixon, I think, is not a first round pick. He's pretty good. He's probably not quite as good as Joey Porter Jr., but he's a good cornerback. I do think, throw it to Marv, we win the game is certainly on the table. Penn State's corners are like good. They're aggressive. They're fast. They're competitive. I would like Marv's chances against really anyone in the country. I like Marv's chances in this game. Like if they're going to throw the ball Marvin's way 15 times, I think he's going to win probably at least 10 of those times. And that's giving respect to the cornerbacks. And I actually do think like Kate Stover is very important for Ohio State in this game. Especially if Emeka doesn't play, but even if Emeka does play, like I watching them, Penn State, I feel like sometimes like the middle of the field is available if you want to go there. And I don't know if teams always have the firepower to do it or have had the firepower to do it. And I think Cade could be that guy. We saw him have the big touchdown last year in Beaver Stadium. So I do think Ohio State, like it's funny, like the thing that concerns me the most is Ohio State's offensive line giving Kyle McCord enough time to throw the ball. But if he does, or if they do, then I think Ohio State does have the advantage, like receiver skill on defensive back skill.
Safeties will hit and tackle, right? Again, Penn State always has good safeties. It feels like they've had a run of guys that you really can believe in. I think that's still in play here. So I do think it's a very good secondary. And it's similar to Ohio State. It's like the guys get their hands on ball. Daquan Hardy, I think it's their third corner, had an unbelievable pick against Illinois. It was like teaching film. And then like Johnny Dixon kind of read like a back shoulder throw and had a really nice pick. Abdul Carter had one of those simulated pressures. They had him up at the line. He dropped into the middle of the field. Luke Altmaier didn't see him. He jumped up and intercepted a pass there. So there were some things where teams have like given it to Penn State. And there are other times when Penn State's taken it away, which is why they're second in turnover margin in the country. All right. So like, what's your balance of like, what percent is Ohio State's receivers kind of just can't be stopped? And they are a huge weapon for Ohio State in this game versus Ohio State can't block it and kind of can't run their passing offense because Adisa Isaac and Chop Robinson and Denai Dennis Sutton like just blow up 40% of their dropbacks.
I guess it would depend on what Ryan Day wants to do, right? Because we've seen games before. I guess he wasn't the head coach then, but like in 2018 when he was the offensive coordinator and they played at Penn State, like, they couldn't do anything. They couldn't really block Penn State. They couldn't throw the ball down the field. And then like in the fourth quarter, like, oh, we're allowed to throw screens, and then they just screened Penn State to death and beat them that way. So if they come in with a plan like that to like negate that pass rush or slow it down a little bit, or just like get them thinking a little more and not necessarily pinning their ears back and going after Kyle McCord because he's looking to throw the ball 25 yards down the field on every snap, then I do think Ohio State has a pretty good chance of finding success against this front, or at least enough success, like even if it's not every single down. But I'm much more concerned, I guess, about Ohio State's ability to block Penn State than I am confident in the receiver's ability to win consistently, because they can win on every snap and it won't matter if Kyle McCord's on his back or running for his life. So I still would give the edge, I think, to Penn State and when it comes to the passing game because of the front.
Yeah, I think I would too. I think this might be the game where like the chickens come home to roost. Like nobody thinks Ohio State has a great offensive line, but it's like they've gotten by. It's okay. You watch film. No, that was pretty good. Purdue was pretty good. And then I think this is the game where it's like, oh yeah, no. I think the Ajabo Hutchinson comparison is a good one. I don't think Adisa Isaac and Chop Robinson are as good as Aiden Hutchinson and David Ajabo were for Michigan in 2021. But I also don't think Josh Fryer and Josh Simmons at tackle for Ohio State are as good as Thayer Munford and Nicholas Petit-Frere were for Ohio State in 2021, and they couldn't handle it. So I think
DeJuan Jones and MPF, yeah.
I keep saying it wrong because Thayer Munford, greatest Buckeye of the last 15 years.
That's right.
DeJuan Jones and Nicholas Petit-Frere. So like that, I really thought about. I was like, I always get this wrong. I'm going to get it right this time, and I got it wrong again. I think the danger gap is similar, right? SAT test. Aiden Hutchinson, David Ajabo, to Nicholas Petit-Frere and DeJuan Jones is as the same as, this is why I don't write SAT tests, Adisa Isaac and Chop Robinson to Josh Fryer and Josh Simmons. So like, I think that, and if you remember that, I think like that's on the table because there's enough similarity.
Yeah, I agree with that. One thing we haven't mentioned as it pertains to the passing game against Penn State, I don't know what Penn State will do if Marvin Harrison is in the slot. Marvin played like 35% of his snaps in the slot last week. If Emeka Egbuka is back, that probably changes the calculus a little bit, but he played 20% of his snaps in the slot the week before Marvin did when Emeka played for the most of that game against Maryland. And I don't know, like, I don't think Penn State is going to play like Kalen King in the slot to cover Marvin, or at least maybe not from the jump.
Maybe not on the first drive, but they might by the second drive.
Yeah. So, but I think you can target these safeties in the pass game if you can find a way to scheme it up. Which is like that's true of most defenses, but
yeah, it's true of Ohio State's defense.
Yeah. So, but I think Ohio State probably will try to do some of that, and I'm just curious how Penn State counters it because that would then take them out of what they've done all year, right? You take Kalen King out off the edge and put him in the slot, then like you got to put somebody else out there who's not played outside corner a lot, and maybe there's an opportunity there for like a Julian Fleming or Carnell Tate or obviously Emeka if Emeka plays.
Yeah, but also like this is what Manny Diaz has to earn his money here, and I do think that he is a difference maker at defensive coordinator. I think he was that last year, and I think he's their version of Jim Knowles. They paid to go get him, and they want to solve problems, and so they know this. They have to have a plan for that. They can't come out if they come out and are like, oh well, Kalen King plays outside. Marv had 12 catches out of the slot, then fire everybody. Like that's not what you can't do that.
No, you're right.
It's the biggest game in 20 years for Penn State. Like we'll get to that at the end, but like this is it. This is it for them. It's not it for Ohio State. This is it. For real. Like this is it.
Yeah.
If Penn State can't do this, then you kind of maybe like they have to bring their A game. They have to. When we come back, Ohio State run game versus the Penn State defense next on Kings of Columbus. Time to break down the Ohio State run game versus Penn State. But before we do, Landis, you had one little thing you wanted to throw in from the past game that you felt like, this is like a tiny little thing that we didn't talk about much.
Yeah, Ohio State's starting quarterback in a big spot. Yeah. Oh, I'm just curious. Like what? So Berm asked Ryan Day about this on Tuesday. Like Kyle McCord seemed to be throwing off his back foot quite a bit against Purdue. Purdue blitzed a lot. I don't think Purdue's blitzes were getting home all that much, but they were sending a lot of guys. And I guess one way to read it is like Kyle didn't handle that well because he was throwing it off his back foot. I actually think he handled it quite well, and his numbers against the blitz were excellent and would have been better if not for a few drops. What is your vibe, your feel, your thoughts on Kyle McCord handling the kind of pressure that we think he might be under in this game?
So I did not take it as a bad sign against Purdue. The thing that's in my head, not even directly tied to the blitz, is the first half against Maryland, right? That idea of, it took a while to work it out against Notre Dame. He has the drive at the end that puts him in the Ohio State history books, and it's like, here we go. And then he has a bad half. Where he's not taking some stuff and he's maybe a little hesitant. And so I think we do have to keep in mind, like I'm not throwing out the Purdue game because we can't be then you'd throw out the whole Penn State season. Like, I don't know if they're that good. Don't worry. So that's not fair to do that. But he's not completely locked in on bang, 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 bang. We know he's going to play great every single game the rest of the year. And I just think the simulated pressures, the way they're going to bring people from different angles, I just think has a chance to disrupt any quarterback with the lack of experience that Kyle McCord has. I'm not more worried about Kyle McCord than I would be about another quarterback in that situation, but I'd be worried about any quarterback in that situation. And I think he's fine against the blitz, but I also think it has a chance to bother him.
Yeah, I think it could. I would all the things you said about Kyle McCord, I think we're going to say about Drew Aller when we talk about the Penn State offense later on, because he's obviously in a big spot and he's inexperienced too. I guess my I am likewise worried about like him feeling things out early on and like maybe the ball not moving as much as it needs to move because of that. But I'm also a little encouraged by the fact that like he was so good in the second half against Maryland. He was really good on third down and on the 2-minute drill against Notre Dame. Like maybe is there something to him that like he, even if he starts poorly, he's going to be at his best at the end of a game. And especially that's especially important, I think, in a game like this where I do believe it's going to be tight for the entirety of it, like still very much in the balance going into the fourth quarter. So I would have confidence in that. But he's not been hit a ton. Like I don't know if he gets hit a bunch in this game. I wonder how that might affect him.
So let's move this toward the run game, but we'll start it with Kyle McCord because Garrett Green for West Virginia, Luke Altmaier from Illinois. This is a defense that when they get aggressive and when they're given different looks, it feels like they are open to a quarterback scrambling in the middle of the field.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think Kyle, again, not designed runs, although we've talked about that, and he had a good keep last week, one or two, maybe three keeps on a read look. But does he have to run? Does he have to scramble for yards a couple times, A, to keep the Penn State defense honest, and B, because that just might be a pretty good way to get 12 yards against this defense?
Yeah, I think he's going to have to. I don't know about his comfortability doing that or how impactful that can be. Like he's done it a few times. He get a scramble against Indiana that might have got him a first down or close to the sticks. He's maybe had one other scramble this season where he did a nice job of getting some yards and there was nothing there. I just think he needs to be more decisive about it. I think there are times where he's looked a little caught in between on what he wants to do when the pocket does start to collapse around him. And that's led to like a scramble for 1 yard when maybe there could have been more there, or, him getting outside of the pocket or under duress and throwing a ball that's a little inaccurate or perhaps even in harm's way. So I do think that's part of this. I think they're going to need, it's not even like quarterback run necessarily, but like his legs and the ability to kind of extend plays, not dissimilar, I think, from how CJ Stroud did it against Notre Dame in 2021, where he was just kind of getting out of the pocket and buying a little bit of time. I do think they might need some of that here. Yeah.
All right. You had a theory of the case for this game that if the weather is bad, and as we sit here, it might be like 10-mile-per-hour winds. It might be a little wet. The forecast at the moment is not for constant rain the whole time during the game. But you thought maybe if Ohio State couldn't throw it, that actually might help Ohio State, because what Penn State does better is get after you with the pass rush, cover your receivers, and they're not as good against the run. Do you feel like the Penn State defense is sort of significantly less intimidating when it comes to stopping the run?
I don't know if I'd say less intimidating, because they fly to the ball from all three levels, and that's hard to deal with. I think they're a little soft in the middle. They're a little light at defensive tackle. They were they were last year when Michigan gave it to them, and maybe they're a little better this year. But I think both West Virginia and Illinois, I thought, did exploit that a little bit. Not a ton. West Virginia did it better than Illinois did. West Virginia's also got a pretty good interior offensive line. That's like the strength of their team, probably. So take that into consideration too. Like, do you consider the interior offensive line a strength for Ohio State, or like, do you really see that group knocking people off the ball? Because that obviously has to happen for my theory to be correct. But I do think it's a vulnerability. I think the tackles combined with linebackers who I feel like at times are a little ambitious and take themselves out of plays can give you some opportunities to run the ball through the middle of the defense. I don't know that I'd be spamming the stretch play against Penn State, because Penn State's got good speed on the edges. And actually too, like watching Penn State defend some of the counter runs and the pin and pull plays that Ohio State showed last week, like Chop Robinson blows a lot of those up because he's so strong, and he'll just take out that first puller and blow up your play. So I maybe those are off the table this week. We'll have to see. But I do think if Ryan Day gets to his more interior, like vertical running game, that could be an area where Ohio State, even if it's not like, 5 yards a carry, maybe it's enough to help them into some more manageable third down situations.
So I think, the shorthand on Penn State's defense, right? You talk to people who cover the team, you hear it on the broadcast, is that their defensive tackles are a little small, and that is the place to hit them up the middle. And again, there's part of me that just thinks Michigan is more designed to attack this Penn State defense than Ohio State is.
Mhm.
So do you think Ohio State can Donovan Jackson, Carson Hinsman, and Matthew Jones up the middle, and then whoever they're handing it to, and we can get to that in a second, do you think they can attack the interior of that Penn State defensive line? And do you think they should? Because this goes back to all the stuff of like the idea of, okay, this is how you beat Penn State. You got to run it up the middle 40 times. And I'm like, I don't want Ohio State to do that against anybody. Like, that's not who they are. So the thing that is Penn State's vulnerability on defense is the thing that Ohio State is not. So what should they do?
I don't think it's the thing you rely on to win the game. I think it's something you could use to help set some things up. Like I said, with the more manageable third downs, I would like to see Ohio State use some like second level RPOs off of inside run action, which they don't do a ton. Like when Ohio State runs RPOs, it's typically, they're not even really RPOs. They're like reliefs built into a run play where you're making the decision almost before the snap based off leverage and how the defense is aligning, more so than it is like getting the snap, riding it out, and reading an individual defender before you decide whether or not you're going to throw the ball. But I think you can do some of that against Penn State because of how aggressive the linebackers are. So, I think those kind of plays where like you throw a glance or a slant behind a linebacker pair well with interior runs like Ohio State's inside zone play. So I would like to see them do that. Whether to do that, I have no idea. I think the other thing you want to avoid too is like you don't want to be dropping back like 40 times in this game, right? Like you don't want to give this pass rush that many opportunities to blow your stuff up. I wouldn't think. So I do think they're going to try to strike a balance here, yeah. And if like maybe if I'm sure people might disagree with that plan, right? Do it, your Ohio State, throw it to your receivers. I don't love that matchup if you're going to do it 80% of the time. So I think you do need to run the ball, if anything, to keep Penn State a little honest and give yourself a chance to move it.
Ohio State 94th in the country, 135 rushing yards a game. Penn State 3rd in the country, allowing just 73 rushing yards per game. Who do you want Ohio State to hand it to? Which is part of it. It's like, you just got to make sure you run the ball. Who? Oh, who? Oh,
like in a world
here.
Are we pretending that everyone's healthy?
No, we're talking about what's going to happen on Saturday. So should we run? All right. We don't, as we record, we don't know on Chip Trainum, but I certainly don't know that we can assume. Is that correct? On Chip Trainum?
I would not assume based off the way that he took that hit. Yeah.
Okay. Mayan Williams, where would you think we might be with Mayan Williams? And I don't know. Like, even if he's fully healthy, I don't know that we're at a point where Mayan Williams is going to get 18 carries against Penn State.
Yeah, I mean, I would like the healthy Mayan of last year available for this game to run some of those plays that I'm talking about, and use his physicality. But I was surprised that he didn't make the trip last week. He's the one I think we know the least about, like what's going on with him, and like we saw what happened to Chip. We know that Travion traveled and like probably could have played if they wanted him to. I have no idea on Mayan. I hope we get a better feel for that after practice on Wednesday, but I'm not anticipating a big Mayan Williams game. All
right, Travion Henderson. What do you think?
You have to use him, right? Like you can't not maybe use him in different ways. Maybe like we're talking about the screen game. Like I think that's where he maybe makes his biggest impact. I don't know if the game plan is we're going to run it between the tackles a whole lot. Maybe you don't want Travion taking 15 of those carries, but I don't think he's bad between the tackles. I actually think where he gets himself in the most trouble are the outside hitting plays where you kind of have to make a choice to like hit it up inside, bounce it outside, or like bend it back against the defense. Maybe more interior plays actually suit him better. So he's part of it for sure. Like I'm giving him probably at least half of the running back touches in this game.
But if you want Ohio State to do what you talked about against these linebackers and these defensive tackles, is Dallin Hayden the guy to take the brunt of those types of carries?
Yeah, I think if you're looking to like hit the hole, hit it on time, get your 4 yards, and move on to the next play, Dallin Hayden is probably your guy. Yeah.
Do you think that's what they want to do?
No,
like,
I don't.
You don't. What does Ohio State want to do with the run game in this game, do you think? Not 4 yards a carry and grind it out?
I think they do want to do that. I just don't know if they want to do it with Dallin Hayden.
All right, so now we know what Landis wants to do. What do you think Ryan Day and Tony Alford want to do?
Yeah, hand it to Travion as much as they can.
Okay. Is this so like, but the fact that we're having this conversation, because you know who's not having this conversation? Michigan. Michigan's like, not like, I don't know who we should give it.
Yeah.
Like we're going to give it to Blake Corum 65% of the time. We're going to get Donovan Edwards 35% of the time. And then every now and then we'll hand it to that linebacker who plays running back sometimes. Like they know exactly who they are, like in this part. Right. And then when Michigan throws the ball, they're like, let's throw it to Roman Wilson. And then what's the other thing? So I get that. Right. Yeah. But this is the vulnerability. It's hard for me to envision Ohio State taking great advantage of the weakness of the Penn State defense.
Yep. I think that's fair. Yeah. Okay. I think they should try it. I don't know that I have a strong belief in it working either, because I think you're right. I don't know that it suits Ohio State's personnel.
Okay. So who has the edge when Ohio State's trying to run it then?
I think I would still give a slight edge to Ohio State.
Okay.
I just like the Penn State's run numbers are really good. They've not been tested. Like I think their rush defense maybe has been tested even less than their pass defense has. So that unknown is enough for me to maybe give a slight edge to Ohio State. And maybe it's a wash. I don't know. No, go ahead.
Where are you with the Ohio State run blocking right now? With the offensive line getting out and getting to guys?
I thought it looked good last week, but last week was also unique. And like Ryan Day made mention of it too. Like the 5-man front that Purdue plays, I just think gives you some more natural blocks. And I think it's like a little easier to identify things. Penn State's a 4-down team. We'll see how much they end up packing the box. I think that's a little bit unknown too. Like, are they just gonna play with a lighter box and trust their guys to make plays? Or are they gonna like bring a safety down and play 7 and 8 man boxes? They do play a 4-3, so they'll probably have 7-man boxes more often than not. But I thought last week was good. I thought there have been other games where it's looked okay, but not for the entirety of games. So I'm expecting it to be better than it was against Maryland, I guess, but I don't think that they're still a tremendous run blocking team.
Okay. I think it's kind of like an even match of two teams who are very good, but don't do these two things at a particularly high level. Mm-hmm. And so, so Ohio State surprises you at times. Like I don't like Ohio State over the course of a 12-game season banging its head against the wall. Every now and then they'll come out and run it down your throat. Like sometimes it just works.
Yeah.
So this could be one of those games, right? It's not like they're incompetent running the ball. I don't think they're consistently good running the ball. So when they consistently try, it frustrates me. But I think they are capable of having a game where it was like, we ran it awesome that game, right?
Yeah, I think they're capable. I'm curious how they try to go about it, right? Because I think they're at their best when they're still spreading things out a bit, like still trying to run from 11 personnel with one tight end on the field. I think if they try to play it like in the phone booth and put 2 tight ends out there and really pack the box and just make it like a, who can be more physical at the point of attack. I don't know that I love that plan, but spread run game, I think suits them pretty well.
Yeah. This will be one of those games where when they're spread out, they run. When they pack it in tight, they throw.
Yeah. Right.
Okay, when we come back, we're going to go to the other side. We're going to start with the Penn State passing attack versus the Ohio State pass defense next on Kings of Columbus. Doug Lesmerises, Bill Landis, Ohio State defense versus the Penn State pass game. I put this theory out to you on Monday, and you shot it down, and then I went and rewatched 3 full Penn State games, and I am leaning in harder to it. I think Penn State is slow playing its pass game. I think it is more capable than they have shown. I'm not saying Drew Aller is a world beater. I do not think he has to be Mr. Dump It Off, even though James Franklin said he wanted to give Drew Aller a hug for taking so many checkdowns. Jim Knowles mentioned Drew Aller as a good thrower of intermediate routes, and I have some stats that back that up. And I think it's strategic for this group, but also I think it's a plan because this has not been an offense that plays it this tight to the vest in the pass game under James Franklin. It hasn't been. This is not their identity year after year after year. And I think they are going to let it rip somewhat significantly more against Ohio State. I'm not saying it will work all the time, but I am not expecting Penn State to come out and throw nothing but swing passes behind the line of scrimmage and 4-yard routes to tight ends. Are you?
I want to read you a quote. Well, because it's a coach in his press conference, right? So what does it mean? He could be, furthering the ruse, I guess. James Franklin on Tuesday, in a question about explosive plays, this is how he ended his answer. One of the big mistakes you can make is to get to certain games that some people say are this or that, and then you try to be something that you haven't been in the previous 6 weeks.
It's part of the long con.
Okay.
He's leaning in.
Okay.
Don't believe him.
Yeah, I'm still skeptical of your plan. Like, and it's not they'll try to throw the ball down the field, right? They've tried to throw the ball down the field in every game this year. They're just not very good at it. So I guess the opportunity is there for them to perhaps hit on a couple of them, but I'm not looking for Penn State suddenly coming out and playing 4 wide and it's the Drew Aller show. I just don't think that's what we're signing up for here.
But a version of, so we made a comparison to the Michigan game in 21, Michigan game 22. Last year, it's more like a run team. They come out and throw like that. Like that's what I'm thinking about. Like they just take some more shots compared to what they did the rest of the season.
Yeah. I mean, possibly, but I also I didn't think that plan for Michigan was particularly effective if Ohio State didn't have defenders falling down.
No, true. It's like, and the whole thing is like the Ohio State doesn't do that anymore. So, okay,
yeah.
Like they're going to stop that. So average depth of target, that's ADOT, right? This is Penn State, their starting quarterback by year. Average depth of target since 2016. Trace McSorley in 2016 was 12.8. He was second in the nation in average depth of target. So he didn't throw it that much. He ran around and was a running quarterback. But when they threw it, they threw it. 2017, 8.5. Average depth of target, that was 70th. 2018, 11.2 yards. Average depth of target, that was 12th in the nation. 2019, they go to Sean Clifford. They change offensive coordinators. It's 10.7 average depth of target. That's 17th in the nation. Now we get to Mike Yurcich as the offensive coordinator in 2020. Sean Clifford is 9.3 in 2021. Sean Clifford is 8.8 in 22. Sean Clifford is 8.6. So Landis, they're going down, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're going from 12, 8, 11, 10, 9, 8, 8, right? It's getting worse. This year, Drew Aller, his average depth of target is 6.6 yards per throw. He's 78th of 81 qualifying quarterbacks in the Power 5. And I don't think he has to be. So, I think a lot of this is choice. Now, they are running the ball 54% of the time and throwing the ball 46% of the time. But he's pretty good on intermediate throws. Looking at looking at college quarterbacks, I just took a collection of guys. Their rating on, this is all, I figured some stuff out on PFF. I was like, oh, there's even better stuff on here than I realized. Why didn't Landis ever tell me about this? So they have between 10 and 19 yards is their characterization of intermediate throws. They have behind the line of scrimmage, they have 0 to 9 yards. They have 10 to 19. They have 20 plus. On throws between 10 and 19 yards, this is the NFL quarterback rating, like that. Trying to find a metric that's not just yards and not just, how often you do it, not completion percentage. Michael Penix at Washington, Bo Nix at Oregon, J.J. McCarthy at Michigan, Jordan Travis at Florida State, Quinn Ewers at Texas. Their quarterback ratings on intermediate throws are all in the 130s, right? Mm-hmm. They're very good at it. Caleb Williams at USC, his rating is 94 on intermediate throws. Hudson Card, Ohio State just played, he's 84. Talia Tagovailoa, he's 87. Not that great. Sam Hartman, Notre Dame, Ohio State played him. He's 71. Not that great. Kyle McCord's 84. Right? So those are guys who are not as great on intermediate throws. Drew Aller's 110. So my point is, he's better on those types of throws than Talia Tagovailoa, Hudson Card, Sam Hartman, even Kyle McCord. He's not as good as the best quarterbacks in the country, but he's okay. He's decent at it. Jim Knowles brought up the intermediate throws, and I think they will take more of those. I think they will try to attack Ohio State there with the tight ends. Keandre Lambert-Smith is like the only receiver worth talking about. They have 2 tight ends that I think are really good, Theo Johnson and Ty Warren. But I think they're going to take more opportunities there and not be a check down turnstile where everything is a 3-yard throw. And that to me is Penn State's version. Not being more explosive, but a passing game that is more on the attack. And I think they are capable of being pretty decent at that. And if they can do that, then I think maybe their offense can be good enough to give them a chance to win this game. So this is the Drew Aller conversation paired with these beyond Keandre Lambert-Smith, the receivers don't get that open. Do you think they can have an effective passing game against Ohio State, or do you think Ohio State's going to shut down whatever they try to do?
I'm more inclined to believe that Ohio State's going to shut down whatever Penn State tries to do. Like I'm looking here, like Drew Aller is good on those kind of throws, those intermediate throws. You mentioned his passer rating, his adjusted completion percentage on those throws is 64%. I think that maybe should be a little bit higher. They only account for 21% of his attempts this year, so like he's still not doing that a whole lot.
Slow play.
Yeah, and maybe maybe it is. Maybe I think that is potentially where Ohio State is vulnerable, or at least maybe where they haven't been tested as much this year. Like I haven't loved what I've seen from Ohio State's linebackers in particular, like when they're dropping into those intermediate zones, and especially if they're going to play like Cody Simon more. Like I do not think that's a strength of Cody Simon's. That's more of a strength of Steel Chambers. So they're going to have to like pick your spots there. I think with both those guys, if Penn State does try to exploit those areas of the field, I think the safeties, you at least want to test them. And not to say that they won't be good at it, but I think you want to make them show that they can be. I just don't know. I guess I'm skeptical that that's like a way to actually beat Ohio State. It might be a way to move the ball a little bit and sustain some drives and perhaps keep the ball away from Ohio State's offense a little more. But I don't know that it's a way to score touchdowns. And I still don't know, like, if we increase the frequency with which Drew Aller makes those throws, does that make him more efficient or less efficient? I don't know the answer to that yet.
I guess my main point here, I would suggest to Ohio State fans that their opinion on Drew Aller not be, he just dumps it off, he stinks. Because I think he's more than that. Because you run into Big Ten quarterbacks sometimes, they're like, okay, like if this guy's throwing it past the line of scrimmage, like they're in trouble. He literally has one throw. So they were like in a 2-minute drill at the end of the first half against Illinois, and he ripped the sideline route to Sean Clifford's brother for like 32 yards on a line that was like, holy moly. And it's like, they just do not try that stuff ever. And I'm not saying they're going to come out and throw 8 balls 50 yards down the field, but he is capable. Right. I think he's more capable than they've played like. And so maybe I'm never done this before. Maybe I'm overestimating. Like I love to assume that things that never happen are going to happen right now.
Yeah.
Sure. They've never happened before, but that's all part of the plan. It's like my favorite way to analyze anything. Ooh, the thing that has never happened. Today is the day that I'm going to run a 4-minute mile. I've been just slow playing it. My 11-minute miles are just to throw people off the scent. So I understand that, but he's a young quarterback. He's getting better. I think there are a lot of similarities between Kyle McCord and Drew Aller. I do. But I do think like Kyle McCord, like they've asked him to do some of that stuff because that's how Ohio State plays offense. So I'm not saying Drew Aller's better than Kyle McCord, but I also wouldn't come in and think that Drew Aller is much worse than Kyle McCord because his ADOT so far this season is one of the 4 worst in the country. That's
just for the sake of comparison here. So on the short passes, which is what's that, within 10 yards, with 0 to 9 yards. 47% of Drew Aller's attempts have fallen within that window. 40% of Kyle McCord's attempts have fallen within that window. So like there's not a tremendously large gap there. And I want to look at deep passing, like 6% of Drew Aller's attempts have been more than 20 yards down the field. And Kyle McCord, 14% of his attempts.
So that's the big.
Yeah.
So it's really the intermediate throws that I'm talking about. Would you blitz Drew Aller? And yes. I have a couple. You would blitz him. So against the blitz this year, Drew Aller is 65% completion percentage, and his yards per attempt is 7.3 against the blitz. Not against the blitz, he's also 65% completion percentage, and in yards per attempt is 6.7. So the completion percentage is the same. The yards per attempt go up against the blitz, and he's been blitzed 77 times and been sacked once. He hasn't been blitzed 104 times and been sacked 4 times. So I actually think some of the stuff that's gotten him so far is like, you drop guys, you make him try to find stuff, he holds the ball, then you sack him. If you come after him, he's at a couple places. So here's the other thing about Drew Aller, and I don't want this to be a Drew Aller podcast. He is from Ohio. Mm-hmm. I think in the first half against West Virginia, he had like their only big play of the year. It's like a 72-yard touchdown to Keandre Lambert-Smith on like a broken tackle, right? It wasn't 70 yards in the air. But I think he was 13 of 18 for more than 200 yards in the first half against West Virginia. And I think it is every other full game after that, he didn't throw for as many yards as he threw in the first half against West Virginia. I thought in the first half against West Virginia, in their opener, he looked pretty good because he got pressured. He had some plays where he got pressured. I think the Keandre Lambert-Smith play was this. He got pressured. He stepped up. It wasn't in rhythm. It was pressure, step up, throw on the run. He's pretty good at times on stepping up in the pocket and making a throw. And then I feel like they've just pulled back from that. Now, the other thing is he has never thrown a pick in his career. He had 2 balls in the West Virginia first half that maybe should have been intercepted. Mm-hmm. And he's had a couple. I think
including that play that you're talking about. Like that was the defender, like it went like through his hands.
Yeah. So I think there was almost something there of, so maybe there's 3, because there was definitely one in the end zone that could have been, and another one that I had in mind. So I think he had a half where he threw for 200 yards. He maybe threw 3 potentially interceptable passes, and they've just pulled back on him the rest of the season. And I think maybe they'll try to let him be a little more that first half West Virginia quarterback in this game. And then the question becomes, if they do, is that good or bad? Does that mean Ohio State's going to pick off 3 Drew Aller passes, or does that mean that Drew Aller's going to make some throws down the field, maybe on broken plays?
Yeah, I'm just, and it's not even a Drew Aller thing. I think it's like a James Franklin thing. I don't know that I expect James Franklin to do that. I think James Franklin's a fairly conservative coach in these kind of games. So to take your quarterback out of his comfort zone, what he's been asked to do for 6 games, to suddenly try to do something different, I think I'd be pretty shocked if James Franklin did that. Now, they're going to call plays that have guys at those depths, and Drew Aller has an incredible arm. Like his arm, he's got a really strong, really accurate arm, can like throw different kinds of balls, can throw from different arm angles. He does have, I think, like fairly good pocket feel, like you said, and he's a big kid. He's like almost 250 pounds. I think people fall off of him sometimes. It's like almost like a Ben Roethlisberger kind of thing. Like you think you have him, but he's just so kind of like big and burly that he slips out of it. I think that's on the table too. But if I'm Ohio State, I want him to show me that he is capable of handling pressure, of getting outside the pocket, of evading pressure, and like still being able to see it and not rush your throw and throw it into the belly of a defender because you're panicking. And maybe he's not a panicky player, but he's a sophomore who's made 6 starts and he's never played in an environment like this. I also don't think he's ever played against a defense like this.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so that's all.
Now the way, listen, Johnny Newton for Illinois was blowing some stuff up in that game in a way that I don't think Ohio State has a defensive lineman that's going to blow stuff up. Iowa's very good. I think Iowa's gotten better since the Penn State game. So they have played some defenses. It does feel like he has taken a lot of 6-yard outs against off coverage. And that actually is what Ohio State has been pretty comfortable letting teams do this season. And I've been all for it. Last week, though, they blitzed. Ohio State, according to PFF, blitzed on 56% of snaps last week. Mm-hmm. The previous games, they blitzed on 15%, 23%, 23%, 45% against Youngstown State, and only 6% on the opener against Indiana. Do you think they're getting ready to dial it up? Because I even if Drew Aller does not throw down the field anymore than he has so far this year, if Ohio State plays off coverage and says, we're not going to let you beat us deep, well, they don't want to beat you deep. They can't. They don't even try, right? So that's the best thing that Ohio State takes away. Again, this is like the things of like they don't match up. The number one thing that Ohio State is great about taking away, Penn State doesn't even try to do. So Ohio State's like, you're not getting deep on us. And Penn State's like, we know, we're not even going to try. But I do think Penn State would be more capable of marching on the Ohio State defense than anybody they've played. Drives of 9 plays or more this season, whether they ended up in points or not, just like holding the ball, lots of plays. Penn State has 20 drives like that in 6 games. Ohio State, by comparison, has 13. So this is a Penn State offense. So I do think strategically for Ohio State, they shouldn't play like they've played. I would blitz more. I would blitz Aller, make him make decisions with guys in his face, and I would not play off against these Penn State receivers and give up the stuff underneath, because you don't have to fear the deep stuff. So get up on guys and take away the throws that Ohio State so far has been willing to give.
Yeah, I think that's right. I also we've not discussed this. Penn State is potentially like going to be on like its 3rd left guard in this game.
Yeah.
Because they had a player, the guy who was going to start for them this year medically retired, and the guy who took his place has been hurt the last couple of weeks and didn't play last week. So, and like, I think
it doesn't sound like he's going to go this week.
Yeah. Like that could be a spot, I think, for like Tyleik Williams to blow some stuff up, right? If he's going up against and then the guard, the guy that they might play is like 345 pounds, like a 345 pound guard going up against Tyleik Williams, like might be appointment television. But I think I like Ohio State's advantage on the interior of the defensive line. And I also like Olu Fashanu is really good. I don't know that the rest of that offensive line is awesome. And I think there are some vulnerabilities there. So I could see Ohio State like mucking up some of what Penn State wants to do, throwing the ball with some interior pressure in Drew Aller's face.
So that is an opportunity, right? Can the Ohio State defensive line like go win this game by doing that? Again, Olu Fashanu is giving up 1 pressure the whole year. He's about as good of a pass blocker at tackle as you'll find. But so I'll be curious again where they line guys up. That's normally the side where JT Tuimoloau likes to line up. I wouldn't let JT slam his head against him all game like they kind of made him do against Joe Alt. I'd move him around and hunt matchups. And but I do think there's an absolute chance Mike Hall, Tyleik Williams, like really throw a wrench into what Penn State wants to do offensively by blowing stuff up inside.
Yeah, I think so. I think that is perhaps an area where Ohio State can win this game, actually, I think.
And then the idea of covering these Penn State receivers, again, as we speak, we don't have a definitive answer on Denzel Burke, but again, even if for some reason he's not himself, Davis Igbinosun, Jordan Hancock, just sprinkle in a little Jermaine Matthews, the way these safeties have played. There's 4 threats in the pass game for Penn State. Keandre Lambert-Smith, who's like a number 2 receiver who's forced to be a 1. There are 2 tight ends, and Nick Singleton out of the backfield, who is pretty good out in space.
Yep.
But that's it. Nobody else scares you, and the Ohio State secondary has been a strength of this team. They'll be able to take the receivers away. I'm not sure where we stand on them covering these tight ends in the middle of the field, though. Like Mitchell Evans, who you love at Notre Dame, had a pretty solid game against Ohio State. And as we get into a conversation about how much is Steele Chambers going to play versus Cody Simon, Steele Chambers is still their best cover linebacker. So I'm intrigued by how that goes. Yeah,
I think that and also handling a pass catching running back is not something that Ohio State has had to do a whole lot of this year. And it actually kind of feels, I guess it's rare maybe in the Big Ten. I don't know if it's rare in college football, but I don't remember a lot of times coming into a game where you had to really worry about that for an Ohio State opponent. So, and Penn State, I think will surely try throwing the ball to Nick Singleton. I don't know. Is that like a Sonny Styles assignment if he's on the field? I'm not entirely sure, but that is a little bit of a wrinkle that I think Ohio State has not had to really think about up until this point.
Keandre Lambert-Smith, 31 catches on 44 targets. Theo Johnson and Ty Warren, their 2 tight ends, both have 16 catches on 21 targets. They're keeping it exactly equal, nice and fair. And then Nick Singleton, 13 catches on 15 targets. So those are the threats in the pass game. Who has the edge here when Penn State tries to throw it?
I still think it's Ohio State. I think Ohio State has the advantage on the defensive line. And I guess I feel a little worse off if Denzel Burke doesn't play. But even if he doesn't, I still like Jordan Hancock. I think Davis Igbinosun is solid. And like I don't know, maybe this is too big of a spot for Jermaine Matthews, but I've liked him from the second they offered him a scholarship, and I think he's ready for the moment. So I think I would still give that back end advantage to Ohio State too.
A lot of reasons for belief in the Ohio State secondary. Denzel Burke is a huge part of it. But again, it's not a hole that they can't capably fill. I would agree that Ohio State has the edge here. My primary point after talking about Drew Allar for 17 minutes is I think the edge might not be as big as people think coming in.
Yeah.
If you're basing it just on what Penn State's tried to do so far. All right. How's Penn State going to run it? And how's Ohio State going to stop the run? That's next on Kings of Columbus. All right, Landis. Ohio State running it. No, Penn State running it. Fourth segment. Can't keep it straight. Penn State running it against the Ohio State defense. How much do you believe in this Ohio State run defense?
There are times where I think it's looked really good, but there's enough out there, especially like the Notre Dame game, that makes me like worried's not the right word, but like slightly concerned maybe going into this, because like Penn State wants to run the ball. Maybe not quite the same way that Notre Dame does, maybe not with as burly of an offensive line, but it's what they want to do. And there have been times where Ohio State's like not had bad run defense, but like if you give up 3 yards of carry all the time, then teams are getting first downs and moving the chains.
So Penn State is not explosive in the run game, but they are like pretty good at grinding it out. Like they're about top 10 in the Power 5 in running success rate, but they're probably in the bottom 5 of the Power 5 in run game explosiveness. So they don't break anything. But it's the thing that like Ryan Day wants the Ohio State offense to do, which is like get your 4 yards, get your 4 yards, get your 4 yards. That's what Penn State does. Nick Singleton, who's a little bit more of their outside back, he averages 4.07 yards per carry. Katron Allen, a little bit more of their inside back, averages 4.8 yards per carry. Just by comparison, Audric Estime, the Notre Dame best running back, averages 6.2 yards per carry. So I don't think either of these guys are as dangerous as Audric Estime was. This is the comparison I've been using a little bit. Like is Katron Allen a little bit of like an extra year of experience, Dallin Hayden, and Nick Singleton is less explosive, but kind of in the same range, Travion Henderson?
Yeah, I actually think Nick Singleton is explosive. Maybe he just hasn't been this year, but I think he's got that skill set. He's got some real wiggle to him too, I think. So I think both these guys are dangerous. Yeah. And it's what they want to do, right? You laid out the percentages of how much they're running the football earlier.
Yeah, 54% run.
Yeah, and like to your point about efficiency, they average 4.8 yards per carry on first down, 3.8 on second down, and 4.7 on third down. So like it doesn't blow you away, but if you do that, you get a first down every time.
So they're going to try to grind it out. This is like what they do. They grind it out. And they get tempo. They go up tempo at times. It's like when they start to feel it. 4 yards, 7 yards slant, 8 yards, 6 yards, 9 yard out, right? It's just like when they start to get in that rhythm, they are very happy to, and like they're not going fast, but they're finding a rhythm. They run a lot of play action. I think the play action concept just like helps Allar settle. And so there's a lot of stuff where he's fake the handoff and then sort of sit and evaluate, but it's based, you build that off your run game. They do that. I mean, I do think it meshes pretty well. Mike Yurcich is in year 3, right? Year 3? 4? Former Ohio State offensive coordinator.
He was here in 19. Here in 19. Texas in 20.
Yeah, so year 3.
Yeah, year 3, yeah.
So I think he knows what they are, right? And so again, my whole thing about Allar's going to throw it more, whatever. Like they're still going to be this though. So when they're not explosive, but they're consistent, like is Penn State good at running it? Like would you like if I like that's hey Landis, hey man, congrats on the Phils being up 2-0. Hey, is Penn State good at running it?
I think they're pretty good at running it, yeah. Because like efficiency matters. Explosiveness is maybe like a real difference maker. But I think like if efficiency is incredibly important. It doesn't get talked about enough, and they're a fairly efficient rushing team.
All right, so who has the edge here then? Like, do you think, because again, do you believe part of the game plan for Penn State is They're second in the nation in time of possession, grinding it out. Like they're almost happy to not be explosive against a team like Ohio State. It's like, would you rather have a 60-yard run or 15 3-yard runs? Is that right? 15. No, it's not
15 3-yard runs. That's
23-yard runs.
23-yard runs. Yeah.
15 4-yard runs. 15 4-yard runs.
This is not a math podcast.
1 60-yard run, 15 4-yard runs. I think Penn State would rather have 15 4-yard runs.
Yeah, I think they want to make third down comfortable for Drew Aller. So they try to get into like 3rd and 4 or less, I think, and they're fine running it at 4 yards a clip because that puts them there. You asked me who has the advantage here. Like, I actually, if Ohio State kind of plays the run, it's been playing it all year, which I think is just like a little less aggressive than they were last year. I actually think Penn State might have the advantage here. The thing that I think Ohio State's defense has done the worst job of this year is letting teams get into too many third and manageables and then running the ball for a first down. I think teams are 50% running the ball on 3rd and short, which is like, it's not a terrible efficiency rating or percentage for Ohio State's defense. But like, I think some of that is helped by like the bad teams just not doing anything. But like Notre Dame, I think was really good on 3rd and short and held the ball for a long time. And I'm a little worried about that in this game, which is why I think, and I'm halfway expecting Ohio State to tweak it a little bit. Like Jim Knowles talked earlier in the year about like we used Tommy Eichenberg as a sledgehammer, and now we're using him more for his mind. I think you might see more sledgehammer Tommy in this game to keep Penn State behind the sticks. Penn State is really good in short yardage. They've converted 17 of 23 third down runs with 3rd and 3 or fewer to go. But Drew Aller, like conversely, in 3rd and long, he's 12 of 26 on 3rd and 7 or longer. He only has 6 first down conversions on those 26 pass attempts. Like, I don't think he wants to be in those situations. But the way you put him in those situations is by making sure that Penn State's not getting its 4 yards on first down and its 3 yards on second down to set up advantageous third downs. So I think you might see a little tweak from Ohio State here to make sure that doesn't happen.
So as you kind of mentioned before with Penn State, like they have a first-round left tackle, and then they're kind of just like fine the rest of it. But I also feel like you can find series in games where their offensive linemen are getting to the second level, right? That they, just like you saw it with Maryland, just like you saw it with Notre Dame, like you can see them do that. They are at times pretty effective at that. And they have a two-headed back that they're going to share the load. Nick Singleton averages 14.8 carries per game. Katron Allen averages 13 carries per game. I do think Nick Singleton in the pass game, as we mentioned, will be a bigger part of this. I think this is, in general, I could see this game playing out sort of like the Ohio State-Notre Dame game, but Ohio State's at home instead of on the road, so that should help. But I also think Penn State is better suited to try to win a game like this. Even though I'd take Audric Estime over either of these backs, I think just elsewhere across the board, everything Penn State does, sort of Penn State's depth of talent defensively, neither Penn State nor Notre Dame had a bunch of receivers that really scared you. But if that Notre Dame game was that close, then I'm thinking this game is that close. Is there enough of a comparison there to think this might look like Ohio State-Notre Dame?
I think it's going to look a lot like Ohio State-Notre Dame. I think Penn State is going to want to do similar stuff to what Penn State was doing on offense. And Notre Dame actually has been more explosive than Penn State has. So it might even be like a more exaggerated version of that. The one thing I guess it's worth pointing out about Penn State's rushing attack, they've been under 5 yards a carry against their Power 5 opponents. It was 4 yards, 4.17 against West Virginia, 4.1 against Illinois, 3.7 against Iowa, and 3.4 against Northwestern. It was 5.2 against Delaware, and almost 7 yards a carry against UMass this past weekend. So they're getting a boost there from running it on the bad teams and not running it as well on the not even good defenses they played, just like Power 5 defenses they played. So that's probably something to consider. Rick
from the 904 asks, will the Buckeyes consider a third linebacker versus Penn State if they focus on run plays? I did ask Jim Knowles about that. What is your expectation of how often we'll see Tommy Eichenberg, Steele Chambers, and Cody Simon together?
I don't know because of Sonny Styles' existence, right? Like if this was last year, then I might say quite a bit, but I think like Sonny can just kind of function as that third linebacker, as you said to Jim Knowles in your question about that. So maybe some mix of both of those ideas, but I think we'll probably see Sonny more than we'd see a third linebacker, like a third like true linebacker would be my guess. Yeah.
Their run game is kind of like slow developing. It's not that what's the long mesh thing that Sam Hartman did at Wake Forest?
The slow mesh.
Yeah. So it's not that, but they'll be Kate Ryan will be like very patient in the hole. They're not slamming into the hole. They're kind of waiting to let sort of those second level blocks develop and kind of picking their way through. So just be accustomed to that as you kind of watch this game. Because it can kind of, there's a lot, it feels like there's a lot of Penn State run plays that like kind of look like a mess. And it's like, I don't know, like, what was that? And I got 4 yards. It's like, I don't know, does that really do anything? It's like, I got 4 yards again. It's 3rd and 2. Now they can run inside. They can run outside. They can flip a pass to a running back. They can throw a 6-yard route to a tight end. Like they're in a position where they have a lot of things to do. So like that's their whole plan. So it can really look not impressive. And you can, I think, get to the end of a game and think to yourselves, how did that work? But it's worked. And again, I do think the thing we have to keep in mind, they haven't played a quarterback. But like Johnny Newton in Illinois, like they're a problem. They will blow you up. Iowa has very good defensive players, right? Like, so Penn State in some of their wins, their defense has gotten turnovers, gotten short fields, and kind of taken teams out of games. And they have some big wins that were tight games. And then they extended leads in the fourth quarter, kind of wearing teams down. You know, the other team's defense gets super tired. And so like, I don't think that's going to happen, but I think this run game is part of Penn State just keeping it close. And when you look at the last 3 Penn State trips to Ohio Stadium, so in 2017, it's the 1-point Ohio State win that is the miracle JT Barrett comeback, right? So like that's quite a thing. 2019, going into the fourth quarter, Ohio State's only up by 4. 2021, going into the fourth quarter, Ohio State's only up by 3. So I think this run game is part of keeping it close. And then I think the Penn State defense is more prepared to go out to try to win a game like this than maybe any Penn State defense that James Franklin's ever had.
I think that could very well be the case. Yeah. One other point on the running game. So Notre Dame found a decent amount of success running 2-back stuff.
Yep.
And Penn State will run the T formation when it's down on the near the goal line. I don't know how much of 2-back stuff they do when they're not in the red zone, but I would be on the lookout, I guess, for them maybe sprinkling some of that in there because Ohio State did not do a tremendous job of stopping that against Notre Dame. And I know like when that happened, Berm was talking about it. Like he immediately went to Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards and like might Michigan's try to do some of that and find similar success. I think Penn State is capable of trying the same thing with Nick Singleton and Katron Allen.
Yeah, they'll put those 2 guys in the backfield like with Ty Warren, the tight end fullback, and then do like a variety of different things out of that. Run it with either of them. I think they flipped the pass to Warren for a touchdown in the red zone out of that look. So it's like a nice little short yardage wrinkle that I think can provide some problems. So bottom line, when Penn State's running the ball, we think Penn State might have a little bit of an edge on Ohio State there.
Yes, if Ohio, like I said, if Ohio State plays like the way it's played to this point, I think Penn State's got a slight advantage there. Yeah.
Okay, when we come back, coaches, intangibles, what else might factor into this game? Next on Kings of Columbus. James Franklin, 1-8 against Ohio State. Ryan Day, 4-0 against Penn State. Landis, when we did Kings of the North, and we hope people are listening to Kings of the North on Mondays. That's where we look at the 28 teams that we claim as Northern teams. There's a lot of Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan talk in there, but we also talk Washington and Oregon and Utah and Oregon State and Syracuse and Pitt. You know, North.
Mm-hmm.
We did top 10 regular season wins of the playoff era since 2014. Ohio State had 13. Penn State had 1. Penn State's 1 was 2016 against Ohio State. We said this would be Penn State's biggest regular season win of the playoff era, but you even went beyond that.
Yeah, back to 2005, the last when Penn State beat Ohio State in Beaver Stadium.
Yeah, beat Troy Smith, Tom Bahali, who helped Larry Johnson make his name when he was the defensive line coach at Penn State. I'm comparing this to the 2016 Michigan game, where when Michigan came into Ohio Stadium in that game, Michigan was really veteran, and I felt like if not now, when for that Michigan team. And they didn't get it done. Ohio State won in double overtime thanks to a spot and mostly thanks to Curtis Samuel. So then that sets Michigan back, right? So it takes them another 5 years to get back to that point. That I don't know what the future is if Michigan gets over the top in that game. But the idea of, I thought, if not now, when? And then Michigan gave Ohio State everything Ohio State could handle. So that happened, right?
Mm-hmm.
They didn't get it done. That's where I am with Penn State. If not now, when? Now, maybe you say, well, wait till next year when Drew Allar's in the second year as a starter.
Right.
I think that's possible, and they'll get him in Happy Valley, right, and all that stuff. But also, I don't know. I'm not assuming that Kyle McCord's going pro. Kyle McCord will be second year as a starter, right? And maybe Ohio State's offensive line will be figured out a little bit more. And Penn State's going to lose some of these defensive guys. So Penn State's not perfect right now, but this is James Franklin's moment. Because in 2016, when Penn State won that game, I still have a very vivid memory. I talked to my buddy who covers Penn State, and I had an inkling. I think Penn State might have a chance to win this game. And we were talking. He was like, no way. And it felt like James Franklin was maybe on the verge of getting fired.
Mm-hmm.
And instead, that win over Ohio State's part of a 9-game winning streak that gets them to they win the Big Ten championship. They get to the Rose Bowl. It creates everything that follows. So that is a huge win for James Franklin. But they already had 2 losses that year. This is the next step. They have not, if they're going to be something in the new Big Ten next year, you have to beat Ohio State and Michigan every now and then.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just be like, oh, we're the 3rd best. Oh, where are we now compared to U.S.? Now we're the 6th best because Oregon, Washington, and USC are also better than us. They have to win some of these games. And I do think Ohio State is working stuff out enough. This is it for James Franklin. I know James Franklin has a lot of doubters. They've been a pretty darn good program. They haven't been in the top tier because they don't win games like this. So I think I saw somebody's headline like, who needs this more, Ryan Day or James Franklin? This is not Ryan Day's end-all be-all game.
No.
Ryan Day needs Michigan.
Yep.
I don't mean to say Ryan Day doesn't need this. Now, of course, they need to win every game. Ask Ryan Day, hey, Ryan, are there any games you can lose at Ohio State? And you'll get a 45-minute rant about how you can't lose at Ohio State. This is James Franklin's Michigan game. This is as big as it gets. This is Penn State's number 1 rival. It is the team that has defined Penn State's tenure in the Big Ten, not being able to beat Ohio State. The moments when they can beat Ohio State, it's like, here they come. So now, is that good or bad? If I think this is Penn State's moment to come on the road and do this in Ohio Stadium, does that mean Penn State's actually going to get it done? Or does that mean that Penn State's going to feel that and crumble?
I mean, James Franklin has not handled the moment very well. I think he's 3-15 now against top 10 teams.
Yeah.
And this is the momentiest moment. So I don't know where that leaves him. Does that leave him more inclined to do the things that have kept them from winning this games, or more inclined to let it all out because I've never needed a win more desperately in my coaching career? I'm inclined to think the former.
The former is not good for Penn State.
Not good for Penn State. Yeah.
So, 1-10 against top 5 teams at Penn State. Does that mean it's never going to happen though? Then, right? James Franklin's 108-51 in his 10th year at Penn State. They've been pretty darn good. Ryan Day's 51-6. But is James Franklin never going to get over the top?
I don't know that I believe that. I think
so this is just early. It's more when Drew Allar's more fully developed and maybe they have better receivers to go with him.
No, I don't know that this is early. Maybe it's like a 2-year window here because they got the quarterback, right? But I'm not envisioning a scenario where Penn State takes another step forward as a program and is like consistently at the top of the Big Ten. I think their existence is much more like we're pretty good, and every now and then we're a notch above that. And I think that's where they are right now. Is a notch above, we're pretty good.
Okay.
Which like, increases the magnitude of this moment. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know. My trust level in James Franklin handling that would be pretty low, I think.
Yeah. And based on the track record, like how could it not be?
Right.
And again, it's one of these things, right? Like Ryan Day, there's a lot of big game discussion around Ryan Day. They have won. They have won some. They've won a lot more than James Franklin's won, right? The two games against Notre Dame the last 2 years are some proof of that. Now they haven't won all of them for sure. They made a big deal about like everybody should get there early for this game. They've made a big deal about Scarlet the shoe, right?
Mhm.
Wear Scarlet to this game for Ohio State fans. Both College Game Day for ESPN and Fox Big Noon kickoff shows are going to be there, which doesn't happen all that often. Like this is a huge game on the college football ledger. It's the 31st consecutive time they've met because of the COVID stuff. It's the longest current streak Ohio State has against any team. They're going to play again in 2024. They are not scheduled to play in 2025. So this is another big thing of like this version of Ohio State versus Penn State every year. It's the defining game for Penn State. All that stuff, it's going to go away. So this is like, appreciate this for what this is, because this is one of the things that will be lost in the new era. Scarleting a lot of people, I don't know if a lot of people, I certainly have seen people say they wish this was a primetime game. It's like primetime quality. I don't know that people are thrilled. It's like Fox likes their big games at noon. I don't know that it's going to be, I've talked a lot over the years about, I don't think Ohio Stadium has a huge home field advantage. I think the biggest home field advantage at Ohio Stadium is that Ohio State plays in it and they have good players. But I don't think that I think Beaver Stadium is a bigger home field advantage. I think Camp Randall for Wisconsin, I think Kinnick Stadium for Iowa are bigger home field advantages. I have questions about a noon kickoff. Everybody wears Scarlet. Here we go. I could see Ohio State coming out flat in this game.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I don't like noon starts for them. And I think I don't know.
I don't like noon starts for anybody, I guess, but
I like noon starts. I think we should Ohio State, Michigan's always at noon, right? I don't know. Let's get geared up for this. I think Penn State is going to be more naturally geared up, because I think this is the defining game of the last 20 years of Penn State football. If not now, when? So I think they have to rise to that challenge. If they shrink, then that's it.
Yeah.
I think Ohio State is more trying to manufacture this, because it's still not what they're all about. And I think people think Penn State can't throw and they haven't played anybody. And how good is that defense? And Penn State's this is it. This is the end of the road. And I think that favors Penn State. I think that intangible view of the game favors Penn State.
I'm interested. I'm glad we're going to be there for this game, because especially pregame. I remember in the Michigan game last year, being on the field when Ohio State came into the stadium, I thought they were tight. They were some guys are mean mugging Michigan players, and Ryan Day looked like he wanted to punch somebody. And I guess you could like that if you want to, but I thought that was a sign of they're too wound up about this, I think.
Yeah.
So I'm eager to get the vibes from both teams on Saturday morning around 10 a.m., I guess, when they walk in.
Yeah. Vibe check will matter. I think the vibes will matter in this game. And the thing I've always said about Penn State, when Michigan couldn't do anything against Ohio State, I always felt like Penn State wasn't afraid of Ohio State. Now, they didn't get over the top much, but again, James Franklin's 1-8. They've played some barn burners. 1-point games back-to-back in 17-18, the overtime game in 14. And again, we just went through in 19 and 21. The last two times they were here, it was a one-score game going into the fourth quarter. They always play with Ohio State. So if they can elevate that and not be afraid of it, then I think they have a chance at the very least.
So Ohio State is favored in this game, but I do not. I think a lot of people are going to pick Penn State. and like Ohio State will be aware of that. Does that help them at all? Like, are they going to be able to channel anything of like being a little bit of an underdog in this game, even if technically?
You think a lot of people are going to pick Penn State to win?
Yes.
Do you think when we get to everybody's like national predictions, you think a lot of people are going to pick Penn State?
I think the overwhelming majority of national writers are going to pick Penn State.
Really?
Yep.
Interesting. Kind of like a lot of people pick Notre Dame, right? Didn't a lot of people pick Notre Dame?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know. I don't know if that helps you. I mean, you're favored.
Yeah.
Who cares what sports writers think? They're idiots.
It was like a thing when they played Georgia, right? Because like Georgia, like everyone, like they were better than Ohio State, which is like not a crazy thing to think. Like, I don't know if Ohio State can go into Ohio Stadium and thinking like people think Penn State's better than us. It's like, no, I just think people think you're like a lesser version of the really good team you normally are. Like, it's not David versus Goliath here.
We'll make our picks on the pick show. It's in the name of the show. On Thursday. So we're not revealing our picks here, but I will be very curious to see where everybody lands. Before we get to what you're watching, what you eating, what you think, anything else about the football you want to wrap up here?
Well, yeah, one thing. And this is maybe not a thing because this is boosted by Penn State returning 2 punts last week against UMass. For Daquan Hardy had 2 punt return touchdowns last week. Ohio State's punt return defense has not been good. Like our punt return coverage has not been good.
Who's in charge of that?
His name is Parker Fleming. He makes $500,000 a year. Ohio State has allowed 3 punt returns of 20 yards or more, which is like a high number comparatively to the rest of the country. I know like 3 doesn't sound like a lot, but it is a lot. Penn State has 3 returns of 20 yards or more. 2 of them were last week. But if you look at like special teams efficiency metrics, I think greatly favor Penn State in this game, especially when it comes to punting. So I just like Austin made this point when we were recording the Bryant show that will run later this week. But like when we talk about these big games, we often do not talk about special teams. They actually could end up mattering in this game. And they've mattered in previous Penn State, Ohio State games, obviously.
And like Penn State's kicker came out and like missed 2 field goals against West Virginia, and then they changed kickers.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And the new guys made stuff. So he's like 7 of 9, I think. Okay. That's a lot of football. This game deserves it. We'll make our picks on Thursday. Again, the Bryant Heating and Cooling kickoff launching pregame show.
Weekend
talking about ball. When's that going to be up?
That should be up Friday, like mid-morning.
Friday mid-morning.
Yep.
And then we will have our post-game show that you and I will be in the stadium for the first time this year, but then we'll do the post-game live right after the game, still as planned. So a lot of football coming for you and a little whatcha coming for you next on Kings of Columbus. Doug Lesmerises, Bill Landis. What you watching, what you eating, what you thinking? Landis, what are you watching?
Yeah, I haven't really watched anything of note this week.
God, you just come on here and you're like, I work really hard. I'm a husband. I'm a father. I don't have time for enjoyment.
You know what's crazy? What's crazy is like I've actually had the house to myself for a few days because my wife and child have been in New Mexico, just like on vacation with her mom and sister. So like I've had the opportunity to watch some stuff if I want to, but like I watched The Dark Knight Rises, which I've seen a million times, and then I just been like watching baseball. So I don't
the Phils.
Yeah, I've been watching the Phils, I guess. I have used this as an opportunity a time or two to point out some music that I'm listening to. So I will just mention briefly that one band that I very much like is a band called the Menzingers. They're like from Scranton / Philadelphia.
The Menzingers?
The Menzingers. With a Z. One word, Menzingers. I don't know.
Is that
why
their last name?
No, I don't know why they're called that, actually. I've never bothered to look it up. Philadelphia area band, obviously. You know, I'm loyal to the brand. They put out a new album last week, and it's pretty good. So check it out if you're into, again, sad white guys singing about how tough the world is.
Who's not?
Yeah.
Were you a Hooters guy back in the day?
Like, no. Like, I guess like as much as I had to be, because I think like, you know, if you're from Philly, you have to like listen to a Hooter song or two. Yeah.
I have Hooters on my exercise playlist. Not the wing place for people who are not familiar with And We Danced. You are, now that it's the baseball playoffs and the Phils are doing well, you often vary your caps, but you are all Phillies cap all the time, including at interviews on Tuesday, which your head was begging for a Jim Knowles acknowledgement. Jim Knowles, fellow Philly native, and you got it, didn't you?
I did get it. It was nice. It was organic too, because Jerry Emig was going to save me for last to go to Jim Knowles, and I'm sure make some kind of comment about the Phillies, but Jim Knowles got to it right before then. So it felt less forced. Yeah, I'm wearing a Phillies hat because, you know, the Phillies are in the playoffs, and I typically do wear hats. I'm also in dire need of a haircut, which is why I'm wearing a hat more often than not lately.
Also Bryce Harper.
He's the man.
All right, so my Whatcha Watching it's coming on November 11th, and I just want people to get geared up because I do think it's officially my favorite show. For All Mankind on Apple. It's the alternate history of the space race. Season 3 ended last August. They are getting ready to launch season 4, not like August 2022, so it's been like 14 months. Season 4 coming out November 11th. It's so good. So if you have not tried it, this is your chance to like get caught up before season 4 launches. Have you ever watched it?
I don't think I've ever heard of it.
It's awesome. It's just an it happens like right away in the first episode, so I'm not giving anything away. The Russians beat us to the moon. And then everything changes. It's the completely different world of what if Russia got to the moon first. And it's just like, and like, we're just season after season after season in this alternate reality. And it's awesome. Now I'm like an old man. It's like, it's an old man. It's a dad show, but I don't know, man. Dad shows are good sometimes. Watch it, man.
Is it like, what was the other show? Man in the
High Castle.
High Castle. Is it like that? Like serious, or is it funny?
Oh, it's serious, but I read Man in the High Castle, which is an alternate history of Germany and Japan won World War II. And I liked the book, and then I tried to watch the show, but I hated all the characters. There was one character I liked. I liked the guy who was the American army guy who then became a Nazi army guy.
Yeah, he was good. Yeah.
That actor. I love that actor. I hated all the other actors. And then you watch those shows where it's like, I would like all these characters to be killed. And then you think like, why am I watching this show? So I gave up on that show because I love the world and I love the idea and I hated the individual people. But on For All Mankind, I like the individual people. They're all very interesting. So like I cannot recommend it more highly. There's some people who would hear this description and be like, but if it's at all of interest to you, it's very well done. So Landis, when's your family get back?
Wednesday night. Yeah, later tonight.
Tonight?
Yeah.
All right. So as soon as we get off here, try to go watch like 6 episodes.
It does. I do like a good dad show. So I think I'm looking now to see who's in it.
Your dad.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's not super famous people in it.
The guy. This guy who played. He was on like House of Cards and stuff. And he's in some of the comic book movies. I know that one guy.
So yeah, very excited for its return. I would recommend anyone trying to get caught up. All right, what are you eating?
I had Indian food for the first time in my life. Yeah. On Friday, I went to lunch to a lunch buffet, an Indian restaurant lunch buffet last Friday. And it was excellent. It was really good. I'm not surprised. Like my wife tells me all the time, I was like, you should try it. You'd like it. And I just like, okay. But I never got around to doing it. So I had it then. It was good. I probably ate like the most basic stuff you could eat. I had like chicken tikka masala and rice and like naan. Like I wasn't getting too crazy with it, but I just like I never had
his bread.
Yeah, naan is kind of blowing my mind right now. But I had it on Friday for the first time, and it was so good that I ordered it again for dinner on Sunday night.
Are there any other entire cuisines that you have not yet sampled in your life? Have you had Mexican food?
Yeah, I've had Mexican food.
It's really good.
Probably like well-known, like popular world cuisines that I haven't had. No, Indian food is probably. I've not had a lot of Thai food, but I have had it. Okay. Indian food was definitely the top of that list.
Welcome, congratulations! Very exciting.
Quite good. Yeah.
So this is my eating is the thing that has blown a hole in my childhood. So I just felt like I just started noticing it this year that it's hard to find red delicious apples at the grocery store, at my grocery store at least. There's all these other apples, and every time there's no red delicious apples. So I was like, why are there no red delicious apples? And then I fell, there's all these stories about it that apparently In 2018, for the first time ever, the Red Delicious apple was no longer the most popular apple in America. It had been the most popular apple for like 50, 60, 70 years every year. And people think that it's bland and don't nod and mealy. And so it's just less popular. And that's why it's not that they're sold out. It's not that there was like an infestation that killed all the Red Delicious apple trees. It's that people don't want them anymore. But my entire childhood, I just felt like that was the apple. I've eaten so many Red Delicious apples in my life. And now I was looking at the apple list. Most popular apples, top 5 apple brands right now.
Can I guess number 1?
Oh, go ahead.
Is it Honeycrisp?
Honeycrisp is 3rd.
Oh, okay.
I do have a Honeycrisp fact. I'll give you a Honeycrisp fact right now.
Okay.
A professor at the University of Minnesota in the 80s was like, I'm sick of these Red Delicious apples. Let's make a new apple. And he made a Honeycrisp. How about that guy?
Patriot. Love him.
Honeycrisp is 3rd. You want to guess any others? Top 5?
Yeah. Gala?
Gala is 1st.
Okay.
Gala's 1st.
Yeah.
And I will say Red Delicious is still 2nd. But their market share has been cut in half. So it's Gala, Red Delicious, Honeycrisp, last 2. What do you think?
I think we've reached the limits of my apple knowledge. I don't know. Green
You're
Fuji.
familiar with Fuji?
Yeah, green apple. I don't know.
Yeah, green. Granny Smith. That's the green apple. That's 5th.
Okay.
So I've heard Berm just very briefly speak on the large variety of apples and what a wondrous and joyous thing it is. So I was thinking maybe they could do a thing with the road breaks. Instead of drinking like different beers, what if they ate different apples while they were opening baseball cards?
Oh yeah, they could do that.
Yeah. Road crisps.
Road crisps.
You know, like a nice, yeah. So, because Berm, like I just heard, I don't even know where I was. I felt like he was producing a thing and he just went off for like 30 seconds about the wonders of the variety of apples in the world. And the result is that my Red Delicious has been left on the side of the road. And it makes me sad because I don't think it's a bad apple. I actually think some other apples are either too tart or too sweet. And so maybe I like the, quote, blandness of the Red Delicious apple. But peanut butter sandwich, chips, and a Red Delicious apple, how do you get a better lunch than that? How do you get a better lunch than that? I'm 50.
I'm team Honeycrisp all the way. So I'm not sad to see Red Delicious fall down the rankings.
I don't need sugar in my apple. Just like
they are very sweet. Yeah, I mean, which is why I like them. But yeah.
If I want sugar, I'll eat a Snickers. If I want an apple, I'll eat a good American apple. It's a Red Delicious. All right, what are you thinking about?
I'm thinking about going to the Circleville Pumpkin Show later this week, and I'm very excited about it.
Have you been there previously?
Yeah, we've gone every year for the last few years, and now we can take a baby. It'll be fun.
There you go.
Yeah.
Do they shoot pumpkins on catapults at that place?
Pumpkin chunkin'?
Yeah.
No, I actually. Well, I shouldn't say that. Not that I've seen. When we just like kind of go and like walk around, it's like, kind of like a carnival feel to it.
Yeah.
But we've usually gone at night, but we can't go at night because the Phils are playing. So we're gonna go for like a matinee, a little afternoon pumpkin show action. I think
fall festivals, man. What's better than a fall festival?
They're the best. Yeah, I love them. It's
hard for us because like you got to find time because most people go to fall festivals on Saturdays.
Yeah, we're gonna go Friday afternoon. I think.
Yeah. Well, good luck.
Thank you.
I'm thinking about the NIL hearing in front of Congress, and it just makes me think that America is in decline. I think it was the 10th different NIL hearing before Congress, and it was right before the Senate, while the House was like, hey, we don't have a speaker. And in the Senate, Joe Manchin's like, back in my day, they didn't pay these. And it's like, what are we doing? There are 2 major conflicts in the world that the United States has a role in trying to help solve in some way. Our own political system is filled with such infighting. There are so many things happening in the world, and we're having a 10th hearing about, I don't know why these kids need to be paid. Just finish us off. We're done. That we can't think of anything better for our legislators to do than complain about why college athletes need to be paid. And it's not Congress's fault because we never should be asking them, because there's an entire body that is in charge of this. And they're so incompetent and incapable. They march to Washington and say, solve this problem for me. And Congress should stare the NCAA and everybody else involved with college sports in the face, including new Big Ten Commissioner Tony Petitti, who was there. They should stare him in the face and say, we have more important things to do.
Yeah.
Figure this out. Or how about this? Would you like to send Tony Petitti and Charlie Brown? What's the new NCAA president's name? Is it Charlie Brown? It's Charlie Baker.
I would have believed Charlie Brown.
You want to send them overseas to deal with conflict? Because it's like, okay, well, we'll do your thing, but can you do our thing? Can Charlie Baker and Tony Petitti figure out who the Speaker of the House is going to be while we fix your stupid, broken model? It's so infuriating. Why do you exist? Why? Everybody at the NCAA, nothing against anybody personally, should all be fired. What if we were like, hey, Doug's internet was kind of weird the other day. When we were recording the show, it was cutting out a little bit. It made Doug fuzzy. What should we do? It's like, I don't know, go to Congress.
we need hearings on this.
Back in my day, you didn't need an internet. You just talk to a man. It's like, that's not helpful. And then they go, and then the people there know nothing because they have 1,000 other things they should know more about than name, image, and likeness. So we just start talking about the Nebraska-Oklahoma game from 1978. And it's like, why are we here? It makes me have zero faith in this wonderful sport. And it embarrasses me.
It is embarrassing.
Oh, you guys couldn't clean up your own mess. Had to go run into Congress. Sorry about the war. Should we pay players?
Yeah.
Hold on a second. I got to go do something with the war. Yeah. But wait.
Players at Utah have trucks. We got to deal with that first.
Players. So it's just a huge, gigantic embarrassment. And I hope they're embarrassed. I hope they're embarrassed to be there. And then the Notre Dame guy, Jack Swarbrick, the outgoing AD, said, we probably have to collectively bargain. So yeah, right. Mm-hmm. Just figure it out. Why did you have to go to Congress? Why did you have to go to Congress to have old people who have no idea what they're talking about talk circles around you and then walk out and say, we should collectively bargain? It's like, I know. Can we go back in time, go back 10 hearings and 5 years and realize, yeah, we could have told you. Embarrassing. Okay, so I'm mad about apples and Congress. No, I'm not mad. I'm mad at wasting Congress's time.
Yeah.
The world, there was a time, I think even maybe when the NIL hearings started, there was a time, when they had the steroid hearings for baseball, I don't know. It just felt like, I don't know. What does Congress do? They have time for that.
They probably didn't have.
Mark McGuire's I can't remember anything. And they were like, oh, that's cool. Congratulations on your home runs. And it made sense because back then there wasn't as much going on. It's like, I don't know, Congress. What does Congress even do? Congress has a lot to do now. Figure out your sport. Or give up your jobs. Okay. Lots of stuff coming this week on the podcast feed. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you so much. If you're listening on a podcast feed, thank you so much. If you are a tech subscriber, and we didn't really do many texts this week because we had a lot of just stuff to dig into. We'd love to have you try it. 614, it's the area code. 662-4509. 614-662-4509. You can send a text to that number and get back a link to sign up. It's free for 2 weeks. See what you think. And Landis, I'm just super jacked for this game, man. This is why we do this.
Yeah, me too. And I was more bummed about not going to Notre Dame because I'd never been to Notre Dame before. But this game just feels, I don't know, way bigger than that one. I mean, I don't know, maybe because it's the next one, but it's a monster. I'm excited for it.
Yeah. So we will look forward to previewing this game with you guys the next couple days, and then we will look forward to talking about it right after it happens. If you haven't listened to the post-game show yet, we got our man Mike Urostowski as our producer, helping run things smoothly. And then Landis and I just let it rip. We have a good time, man. And if you haven't listened to a post-game show, this would be a great one to jump in on because I think it's going to be a great game. For now, for our producer, Mike, for Philly Billy, riding high with the Phils, I'm French Vanilli. And that was Kings of Columbus.